Hello and welcome, and thank you for sticking with us until the end. The final league in the Automated Negotiating Agents competition for 2021 is the Human-Agent Negotiating League. And I am going to be presenting our results. I have pre-recorded this just in case of connection issues, but if all goes well, I will also be around at the end of this recording to answer questions and to discuss. So without any further ado, here are the results of our league. We had a great year this year. I'm very excited to share these results with you. So, as I mentioned, this is the Human-Agent League. We're happy to be part of the 12th Automated Negotiating Agents competition. This is our 5th year. So we started when the Automated Negotiating Agents competition first started expanding into additional leagues. We were one of the first leagues that was created to focus on the idea of human-agent negotiation. So looking at all of the details and human factors and complexities that goes into designing agents that are capable of understanding and negotiating with humans. Why do we care about humans? Well, human and agent negotiation are very different. You will have already heard about various different aspects, different structures of negotiation that are being represented in the other leagues. You will have heard about Werewolf, which is a social game, as well as some other things that sort of are splitting off from the basic agent-agent negotiation. But just to summarize again, for those of you who are unfamiliar, agent negotiation often is very structured, and you will have some kind of protocol where the agents are attempting to negotiate with each other per some pre-agreed upon set of rules. You tend to have fully specified offers, but that has changed over the years within ANAC among other people. But often you can still send very complex offers where you're talking about many issues at once. It's very rapid. You're limited only by the computing power that you have. And we use time-dependent utilities often, or utility curves, functions, things like that. Of course, not all of these things have to happen exactly this way, but these are some common features of agent negotiation. Human negotiation is more or less the opposite of several of these things. First of all, it's very free form, although the human agent negotiation that we conduct as part of this league does use a platform, which I'll talk about in a little bit. It is generally a much more flexible. There normally aren't formal rules set up beforehand for how you interact if you start with certain discussions first. Offers tend to be both partial and retractable, so they tend to be on simpler things, talking about only a few issues at once, and in most cases, presenting offers are not considered binding. They are both legally and in practice. When you are treating with someone, when you're negotiating with someone, you are normally talking about fluid issues and proposals that you can agree to, but until the ink is dry and the contract is signed, they are not formal. Human negotiation is also comparatively slower compared to agent negotiation. And utilities tend to be static. You set what you want before the interaction begins, and there's no formal way to talk about the changing utilities. Obviously, some deals can expire, and some alternatives can leave the table, but these tend to be done a little bit more piecemeal. And then, of course, there are things like emotional displays that are relevant in human agent negotiation. As we all have come to realize over the past year, Zoom calls and virtual interactivity can only get us so far. In person, the ability to read someone's body language and emotion matters quite a bit. Of course, there's language argumentation and then biases. Humans are not as logical as machines, and they bring in particular premises into negotiations. So the task we examine, and also there can be cultural effects as well as several other things that make human negotiation an interesting topic for research. So the task that we examine in this league is a familiar one, but I will remind people once more, it's a multi-issue bargaining task. So we're splitting issues between, in our case, indeed, two sides, trying to divvy up a set of items where all of the items have to be divided up between one of two winners. Although, in our case, we can also have people leave the bargaining table entirely or fail to reach agreement within time, in which case this leads to a best alternative to negotiated agreement, or BETNA. It's also worth noting that the sides may or may not be wanting the same things. They may have disparate utilities, and there may be integrative potential. So in most of our games we have integrative potential, which means that if you can find the things your opponent wants, they will not be the same things that you want. And this task is often timed, and it is timed for us as well. So the platform used for the Human-Agent League is the same one that has been used since its inception, the IAGO agent platform, which I designed as part of my graduate work. The IAGO agent platform is meant to allow humans to interact with agents and allow them to do certain features that are part of this multi-issue bargaining task. So I'm going to show you an image of what that looks like, and I will show you a quick video just to highlight some of the features of the negotiation platform. So this is a web-based interface. Anybody can log on to it. There is text. Users can express their preferences by using a series of buttons to say certain predefined phrases which can be interpreted by the agent. The agent can choose to reply with emotion, with text. The agent can show that in an embodied feature in the upper left. And then we have a simulated offer table where you can send offers back and forth to the automated agent. And IAGO has gone through a number of iterations over the years. There's some features that are part of this year's challenge that I will talk about shortly that have expanded the degree to which agent designers can craft their agents. So, this year's challenge. So we did indeed look at a common negotiation task. We again had 3 repeated negotiations. So there were 3 back-to-back negotiations. But they were not identical in structure. So all of them did have 4 issues, but the structure of the first game favored the human. The second game favored the agent. So there were more points available to the human in the first round, more points available to the agent in the second round. They also both had integrative potential, but there were simply more total points available for the human in the first and for the agent in the second. And then the structure was mirrored. It was even in the third game. So over the course of all 3 games, the same amount of points was available, but it did vary between the games. Each round lasted a maximum of 7 minutes, and there was a moderate amount of points you could get by walking away or failing to reach agreement. And specifically for this year's task, we allowed human users at the end of every round. The human users were able to choose whether they wanted to continue negotiating with the same agent or if they wanted to switch to a different agent. So in this case, if the human user that your agent was negotiating with, if the human decided that after the second game it did not wish to negotiate with your agent anymore, then your agent would score no points for the final round. Would not be able to get any benefit from that. So retention was key. Keeping the individual users was sort of the focus of this year's challenge and exploration, and trying to see what agents were capable of doing that. And I'm happy to report that there was quite a lot of variance in the ability and the extent to which agents were able to retain their users. So a few more details. We ran approximately 25 human participants for each agent. They were not reused across different agents. We had a number of ways to sort of improve the quality of our results. We had attention checks throughout the interaction. We did have some attention filtering that we looked at post negotiation, and we did some filtering for timeouts. So because this is done using Amazon Mechanical Turk, which is an online platform as opposed to in a lab, we will always get a certain amount of people that get interrupted in the middle, quit, or simply drop the task in the middle, and so we try and filter those out. So anyone who only participated in one of the 3 games at all was dropped from the results. If they participated in 2 or more games, then they were retained, unless they got the timeout. They timed out in all the games, in which case they were dropped. So we did some pretty extensive filtering. There were some other details on how we cleaned the data to make sure that we were getting good results. So these were all U.S. residing participants. We do this because of the cross-cultural effects that I mentioned earlier. We want to try and reduce those. So our results are somewhat specific to the U.S., English-speaking, and again, Mechanical Turk. We also give people scaled incentives. So the more points they achieve in the game, the more lottery entries they receive for an additional cash bonus. And then we collect a lot of data about the human participants. So demographics, performance data, how well they do, obviously, which is the focus of today's presentation, and then post-game survey data. And we also collected specific data in this case about whether they wanted to switch partners. So just to clarify, if someone switched partners after the first game, then that was counted as them participating. They were not filtered out. They were only filtered out if they literally played the first game and then quit and did not continue through the rest of the experiment. Also, when human participants did decide they wanted to switch, they were switched to our baseline agent. So your agent, the competitor agents that were submitted would not receive someone who had participated with the first agent. So again, it's impossible for any given user to see 2 competing agents, one in game 1, one in game 2, for example. They would have only seen one of the competing agents, and then if they did choose to switch, they would have been switched to the baseline to keep things fair. Okay, so that is the premise of the rules and all the details. So now I will move on to talking about the winning agents with one more brief interlude, which is to talk about statistics. So we did basically this is done fairly simply for the purposes of the competition. We looked at one-to-one means comparisons. So we looked at who got the most points. And that means that if your agent did not reach a second or a third round, then it didn't get any points. There's also some other results that I will present here shortly. We looked at failure to reach agreement scores. So we had a higher amount of participants this year that did not reach agreement. And this did vary by the agents. So it's possible that this happened because some of the agents got into a state where they could not reach an agreement, and so it's possible that that's why. But many of our agents that were submitted did indeed reach agreement fairly readily. So we do have those results. We also computed the percentage of agents that led to player retention. So I have presented that statistic, and I'll show you a little bit later as the amount of games in which the human participant stayed with a particular agent for more than just the first game. So if you were able to retain them, then you would be counted in that score. So the winner in this case was determined by the total points scored on average, so how many points they got. So if they retained users for more games, they got more points. And then we included everything. So this is the basic rules of the competition as was presented. It's just the amount of points you get. The second place runner-up was determined by the above. We had a clear first and second place this time around. The third place was a little bit more complicated because we did have these heightened failures to reach agreement. It was unclear. Computing it the same way, there were two that were very close for third, but one of those agents was did very well when we filtered out the scores where they failed to reach agreement. So it was a hard decision, but decided to break the tie in that direction. So our third place winner was the one that did better, not counting failures to reach agreement. But anyway, without further ado, I want to congratulate all of our participants. We had 11 submissions this year, which was great. We also were happy to report that some of these submissions were part of a class on agent design. And Dr. Gleedheim was kind enough to encourage students to participate in the competition and to submit agents. I was very happy to get quite a few submissions from that. And so, the winners. Congratulations to our first place winner, Agent Naji. That was the collaboration of Tal Levy, Ail Cohen, and Lidor Alice from Bar-Ilan University. Did exceptionally well. Excellent results. We're very excited for them to be our winner of the 2021 competition. But we had excellent runners-up as well. Second place, again, a clear second in my mind, was both statistically and just through observing some of the techniques, was Fair Trader by Dale Peasley, Arib Khan, and Sandeep Sen of University of Tulsa. And then our third place, which was close, as I mentioned, was Dr. Strange, which was Amnon Ashkenazi Omer Ben Arditi from the College of Management Academic Studies in Israel. So please join me now. I will take a brief moment for everybody to congratulate our winners, and thank you very much. Okay. So we did have a prize pool for this year's competition. It was a $500 prize pool, so that will be distributed to our first, second, and third place winners. I hope by next week we'll be reaching out to them to get information for electronically transferring that, and also certificates will be delivered electronically to our winners and runners-up. So, moving on from this aspect of the presentation, I'm going to dive just a little bit more into the results so people can see them with some detail. And then we're going to have two great presentations from two of our finalists. And then I'll close with a little bit of discussion about the future, and we'll have some discussion time at the end. Okay, so here are the total points. So I've highlighted our top two here, Naji and Fair Trader. So we were able to see that they were above and beyond leading in this regard in terms of total points. We had three that were actually very close at the third place rank. Dr. Strange, Joey, and Agent Rodham. And then the Ursula favor is our baseline, and I've also included our average across all the agents. And Ursula does not count in that average. Ursula is part of the, as I said, it's the baseline, and we did not compute its score because it was really only used when people transferred into that agent because they didn't want to negotiate with their original agent. So we had some really great results there. Many people scored above the average, and very happy to have some great results this year. In past years, we've had some that were pretty close to our baseline, so happy to see some real substantial improvements. This is a similar chart. This one is looking at the percent of first games that lead to more. So this is this retention percentage. So as you can see, huge variance in which agents were able to retain their participants. And you may notice that the pattern looks quite similar to the previous slide. And again, that's because the retaining participants in this year's competition was so vitally important. So Agent Naji again very clearly was retaining users, as was Fair Trader, as was Agent Rotom. We're all able to keep quite a bit of people continuing to play with them game after game, which led to their success. And then this is the one that I use for our tiebreaker. So not counting failures to reach agreement, of which there were quite a few. You could see things even out quite a bit, but we still have some leaders. In this case, Naji and Dr. Strange Agent was quite a bit above some of its competitors, including Agent Rotom and Joey. So this is our sort of tiebreaker, third place, and you can see that still our agents were able to do quite well. And in particular, when they avoided failures entirely, our scores are on average higher. So we can break this out by all three games. So looking at the performance of the three games. What I'm showing you here are the average points scored by each of the agents in each game, if that game was played. So I am not taking the zeros out of it and factoring those into the average. So if you played a game, if your agent made it to game 3, then we're showing the average. The one exception to that is our Jekyll Hyde agent, which we actually didn't have any data on. For game 3, Jekyll Hyde did not retain any people to game 3, so that's why that is an NA point there. But anyway, looking at our winning agents here, we can see generally that all the agents more or less are increasing. Not all of them, but often increasing the amount of points that they retain over the game. Could be due to increased trust, but it's also worth noting that there's a structural benefit that agents can keep more points in game 2 because it's worth more. But game 3, that's not the case. So the fact that they were able to improve in game 3 is interesting. And you can see our Fair Trader, our yellow line here, is a steady increaser, does better and better. Our Doctor Strange actually is pretty middle of the pack on the first game, but retains people and does the best of anybody on average in the game 2, and then is still pretty good in game 3. So I think that contributed to its success. And then, of course, our top performer, the Naji agent, does really, really well in game 3, and we know has a great retention percentage. So what I can hypothesize is happening there is that it's retaining people, and then it's managing to get quite a few points in the third round. So anyway, happy to discuss more about this data and take questions at the end. But for now, I am going to move on to our next presentations from our finalists. So I have some recorded presentations that they were kind enough to share. First up is Dr. Strange.
Hi, before we start presenting our agent, I would like to thank the International Joint Conferences on Artificial Intelligence for sponsoring this event. I would also like to give a warm thanks to Jonathan Mel for directing this competition and to our supervisor from the College of Management, Galit Chaim. I am Amnon Ashkenazi. I'm 26 and I'm currently working as a software developer at AppsFlyer. I just finished my bachelor degree in computer science.
And I'm Omer, working as full-stack developer at cybersecurity company.
In this presentation, we will present Dr. Strange's strategy as an aggressive but trustworthy agent. We will present the agent personality through our behavior in different situations, like message response or offer request. In addition, we will explain about our small losses for a big win favor approach, for gaining trust and earning better offers. But before we extend about our agent personality, let's meet our agent face, Laura. After researching about gender differences in negotiations, we learned that while men are typically believed to be rational and logical, women are usually more emotional and intuitive in negotiations. That's why women build relationships more easily than men do. Those emotional and intuitive qualities are a perfect fit for our favor exchange agent. We tend to believe that human approaching our agent will follow those stereotypes, norms, and trust our female agent. It is also important to know that in the same research we found that some men could find the female negotiator submissive, which may lead them to try and manipulate our agent. Our agent will prevent this behavior by playing aggressive from the start and lead the negotiation. Doctor Strange's personality contains few main features. There is always an offer on the table. It doesn't matter if the game started or if the human rejects an offer. Our agent will always respond with another offer. The agent will be friendly and fair, as long as the human will be participating in our favor exchange strategy. And finally, Doctor Strange will not share its preferences if not asked about them, but if asked, our agent will respond truthfully. New game, new agent? The short answer is no. As we try to connect with our human negotiator, we want to stay in the same negotiation narrative. The agent will act the same throughout the games, but preserve its favors. A favor given in the first game can be reclaimed in the next one. In addition, as we discussed before, our agent will make sure there is always an offer on the table. Doctor Strange will tend to lead the negotiation and make sure its strategy is applied. Small losses for a big win. Our agent will grant small favors in order to get a better one in the future. It will try to gain the human trust with those small favors and then, when needed, will try to reclaim those favors in a bigger offer. 2 times 3 is better than 1 5. Our agent will use the second most favorite item as well. It will try to grant the human small amount of high-valued items for a bigger amount of the second most favorite item. The human may take this as a favor when actually the agent will gain the better deal.
Action speaks louder than expressions. Our agent will decline the other human expression and will consider them as irrelevant. However, our agent will most likely to react to an action with expression. Main goal is to direct our human negotiation to our favor exchanging strategy. With that in mind, we decide to respond to an action instead of expression. Rejecting favor will be rewarding with angry face, when accepting one will lead to a happy one. This reward or punish response should lead to our desired outcome. When we are talking about Doctor Strange message policy, there is no much to it. Our agent will ask for favors and accept the human favors when needed in order to achieve the main goal. Other than that, our agent will answer kindly when the user is participating with our strategy and will be angry when the user will try to avoid guaranteeing or receiving favors. In addition, our agent will interact with the human through the game, trying to connect with him and gain his trust. He will share truthfully his preferences. In conclusion, our agent will be committed to its strategy and will always try to make the human follow in the same path. Our agent will grant favors and prizes, unquote, for participating and punishments for rejections. Thank you very much and toda rabah.
Okay. Thank you very much to the team behind Doctor Strange, and please join me in congratulating them for their submission and their good performance. Since I'm doing this as a recording, I'm going to just continue on to the next proposal here, but hopefully we will be able to pause and if the team is here in person virtually, we will ask some questions. But if not, we will move on to the next presentation. For Doctor Strange, I am particularly interested in the research they did on looking at gender roles and trying to pick an agent that would be most effective in conveying their intention strategy. And I think they also did some very interesting work with trying to use favors and expressions. So our next is our second place winner, Doctor Strange, and I will now begin that presentation.
Before we start presenting our agent, I would like to thank
Here we go.
I'm Dale Peasley, joined here by Arib Khan. We're from the Multi-Agent Systems Research Lab, the Tandy School of Computer Science, University of Tulsa. We're presenting here today on Fair Trader, our submission for the Human-Agent League of ANAC 2021. Again, this year's Human-Agent League is run on IAGO. It's run on the IAGO platform. And this year, in addition to all the normal challenges such as the multi-issue negotiation and the managing communication with human, we also have the challenge that the human may choose not to participate in the third round negotiation with our agent. Our agent's first move is to present a blind offer based solely on our own preferences. The goal of this is to break the ice by getting an offer on the table so that we don't have the awkward blankness at the beginning of the negotiation. This also provides a reference point for the rest of the negotiation, and it also can quickly seal a deal if the preferences of the agent and the human are inverted. The backbone of our strategy is our offer generation our acceptance algorithm. We deal only in complete offers, which are easier for both the agent and the human to work with. We track the difference between the agent's offer and the player's counteroffer. We use this to calculate the proportion of how much of each issue they take and how much they give over the course of the whole round. We use these to allow the agent to make more informed decisions about how to create its next offer. We give a unit of the issue that the player has been taking the most of, and we take a unit of the issue that the agent values the most that the player has been giving. We accept a counteroffer when it is within a threshold of the last offer that we gave. An example of this is as follows. We have a situation where we have 4 issues of 5 items each. We have it here represented as an array of 4. Each of these represents the amount of items allocated to the agent. Because these are full offers, the amount allocated to the human can be simply derived from that agent, allowing us to represent the entire offer in a single 4-long array. Both the human and agent have the same utilities for this, being 4, 3, 2, and 1. Our agent starts off by taking the top 2 items for it and giving its bottom 2 items. The human, because they have the same preferences, respond in kind. Here, then we calculate the difference, the negative sign letting us know that they took this, and the plus sign letting us know that they gave this. From this, we can then make a decision on our next offer. We give them, out of the tie here, we give them the one that has the lowest utility to us, and out of the ones they took, we took the one with the highest utility to us. The human then gives another counteroffer. We run the same math again, and that informs the next decision. Now we see that they clearly want to take the first item more, so we give them one of those. And again, we take the item that they have been given. We take the item with the most utility to us that they've been giving. We repeat this process until the difference in utility drops below the threshold based on our last offer. The threshold in this case being 15%. To discuss how our agent handles favor requests and also communicates with the player, I'm going to pass it off to Arib Khan.
Hey everyone, my name is Arib Khan. The Fair Trader agent honors any favors requested by the player in the first 2 rounds. The agent also does not approve any further favors if the player has any outstanding favors that have not yet been returned to the agent. The agents also make sure to reclaim any outstanding favors that have not yet been returned by the final round. The agent's strategy for the first 2 initial rounds are to be non-greedy, seek mutually beneficial offers to promote cooperation and goodwill, and be relatively generous to promote third-round retention. The agent's strategy for the third and final round is to exploit the player with a hard-line greedy approach. Our use of language is predicated on the idea that there are three basic principles that are crucial to a successful negotiation. The first is ease of understanding. It is extremely important that both parties understand what is happening every step of the way. We use concise communication to facilitate better understanding and help keep the player interested without sounding monotonous. Concise vocabulary also allows us to explain more without overwhelming or distracting the player. The second principle is non-repetitive phrasing. We constantly change our agent's language throughout each round to avoid sounding repetitive. Each round uses new phrases and language to keep the player attentive and engaged. The third principle is transparency. Transparency is a key factor in developing trust. Trust is essential in a negotiation and engenders mutually beneficial outcomes that might otherwise be unlikely. We have a few examples of interactions between the player and the agents. The first interaction is when the agent is initiating the first round. Click the accept button if you like the offer I made, else give me a fair offer that works for you. Don't send an offer you are not willing to accept. The second interaction is the agent's response to a favor request by the player. The agent responds by accepting the favor and slightly nudging the player to return the favor in the near future. The agent also sends a happy face emoji to project a friendly attitude to the player. Sure, I can give you a good deal in exchange for you giving me a good deal in a later round. The third interaction is the agent's response to rejecting the player's offer. The goal is to politely decline and then respond with a more favorable and mutually beneficial offer that the player will hopefully accept. I'm sorry, that deal does not seem fair to me. How about this for a deal? To give a recap of the Fair Trader agents, we guide the player through each step of the negotiation process using a language model that is based on easy understanding, avoiding repetition, and transparency. The Fair Trader agents utilizes quite a few negotiation tactics, such as the use of an anchor deal to establish a reference offer, gauges player preferences from differences between offers, aspires for win-win deals, honors favor requests, and is considerably more greedy in the final round. That concludes our presentation. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you again to the team behind the Fair Trader Agent. So I will again ask that everybody join me in congratulating them on their participation and performance. Okay, so I will again take this point to say here's where I will pause if the Fair Trader team is able to join and answer questions. But otherwise, I'm going to move on to save time and to get to the last section of the competition. So, want to talk about sort of some takeaways and the 2022 competition and future, and hopefully we will have some very interesting strategies. I particularly thought that for Fair Trader, they had done a lot of interesting work in trying to choose an offer strategy that was based on the actions that the player pursued, and we had some very intriguing strategies from a lot of our different agents this year. So, key takeaways. First off, I will say that we had some new improvements this year. We allowed participants to choose to leave an agent in pursuit of better alternatives, which has opened up this task to being more complicated than simply trying to make your agent someone that the human player not just is forced to work with, but they could actually leave at any time. So making this more of a marketplace of potential partners instead of a strict linear requirement. This year's agents were able to do well in spite of this, beating our baseline, and we had several that quite well performed above the baseline, including all of our winning agents. Mostly they were able to retain. I believe the retention rates on the best performing agents were somewhere around 80%, or slightly higher than 80%. So they were the vast majority of participants were continued to work with that agent. That was all of our finalists, I believe. We had a big spread. Some of the agents only retained 20 to 30% of their participants. Indeed, yes. So retention rates were still pretty high, but they, like I said, they're right around 80%. So that still means that a fifth of people are choosing to move on to other partners. A lot of this may be due to a novelty effect. You know the partner you've been negotiating with, and you may want to just try someone else for the novelty of that. But it does point out, to me at least, that people may not always be acting in their best interests. We've shown that several of the agents were exchanging favors, were willing to retain and exchange them, and you lose that benefit if you don't continue to negotiate with the same partner. So some very interesting results there that we'll hope to share more of in the future. But congratulations again to all the participants. After 5 years of these competitions, we can make very effective agents, even when the structure of the negotiation favors one side or the other, or when people have lots of choices to leave. Ongoing questions is how will these agents fare against people who are more highly trained, who are not MTurkers, but are professional negotiators? Will these favor-seeking agents continue to make gains in longer timescales? That are more than just these three negotiations. So next year's challenge will likely feature an expansion of this partner switching behavior in a more complicated way, and looking forward to seeing another round of great submissions. Again, if IAGO now supports some new abilities, there are some upcoming features that I'm very excited about for IAGO for conflict resolution. And if you're interested in using IAGO to answer your own research questions, please contact at the website or just reach out to me. So, thank you very much. I will end here, and hopefully there will be some time for some Q&A and discussion for the Human-Agent League. Thank you.